some highlights of the budget as it was initially released not too long ago. Some of those highlights are that the 2021 budget as proposed continues without a general fund property tax. The spending plan does not exceed the New York State tax cap. And no fund balance monies were used to balance the budget, something that has been much more popular among municipalities with the particular issues with revenues and the COVID pandemic. The highway fund tax was proposed to remain flat at $29.85 per thousand of assessed value. Just to give you some history on that, the highway tax was 87 cents of assessed value in the year 2000. Our EMS tax rate was slated to increase from 25.19 cents per thousand to 27.48 per thousand of assessed value in 2021. The EMS tax rate held steady in recent years due to the burgeoning healthcare industry in Clifton Park and an expanding tax base. Just cut the ribbon on another beautiful new building on Route 9, a redevelopment project, and another significant investment by Ortho New York. For comparison purposes, the EMS tax rate in 2000 was 26 cents, or slightly higher 20 years ago. The town has continued to maintain overall cost control and hospital, dental, medical benefits, expenses for town employees. This expense line is flat when compared to 2020, a record over the last 10 years in particular, and that line item has been certainly going against the grain as far as the huge increases that have been experienced by other private and public sector organizations. In addition to investments in vehicles, equipment, trails, parks, and other important areas, 2021 budget includes funds for a new phone system. The town's strong fiscal position was highlighted by the bond rating upgrade by Moody's Investor Service recently. Moody's cited Clifton Park's, quote, low debt level, strong reserve position, and management's proven history of conservative budgeting practices, unquote, as positive factors that led to the upgrade from AA2 to AA1. The town has also registered a superior score for the New York State Controller's fiscal stress monitoring test results, which are released every year. Town's tax base has now surpassed $5.3 billion. However, we all know a solid financial standing can turn in a negative direction quickly. And, this year was certainly an indication of the perils that befall every private and public organization if they're not prepared and if they're not careful. But we've experienced other difficult economic periods of time over the last 20 years, following 9/11, the housing crisis, periodic recessionary conditions, and through all of these difficult circumstances and the challenges posed in 2020, the town of Clifton Park continues to maintain a strong fiscal position. And that will not change, I assure you of that. As we get into the public hearing, I thought it would be good at this point to go back to continue a discussion from a couple of weeks ago that involved some proposed budget amendments. that I proposed, and I just want to review those again and speak further about that. So the first one was salary increases that would be associated with the proposed, at least an idea that I proposed, consolidating the buildings and grounds department with the transfer station department. And Mark, we had a change on that?
Yes, we did. The initial one was one step lower on one of the individuals than what they would go up to. So I initially had it at $15,000. It's going up to $20,913 for all 3 employees for 2021.
Well, total for all.
Total, yes, all 3 of them combined together.
Yeah. Yeah, so that involves Dan Clemens, Kieran Lynch, and Don McHugh. There was also a proposal in a new MOU proposed with the New York State Police that would reduce our contract costs, but increase other costs in relation to that new proposed MOU. An increase would be the public safety building equipment line of $50,000. We'll talk more about the MOU in a couple of minutes. There was also, I had also proposed at the time, transfer station capital lease payment of $37,000. That is for a new loader. That's the first year payment for the new loader. Public safety radios, which is something that we discussed at budget workshops. 6 new 800 band radios for $30,000. There's a line item for an additional $100,000, which would be transferred from the general fund to the highway fund for highway for infrastructure. Reductions in spending in the general fund would include $200,000, and that is part of the new proposed MOU with the New York State Police, and $97,510, which would be the elimination of a supervisor position at the transfer station. So the spending in the general fund from the original budget would decrease $59,597. That would be a decrease. For the highway fund, there was a proposal to add $50,000 for highway equipment purchases, which would probably be a lease payment on a new plow truck or other needs. A new line item for slip lining of $200,000. Reductions would be $100,000 that would be transferred from paving to the slip lining, new slip lining line item. And the revenues in the highway fund that would increase would be the $100,000 I mentioned before as a transfer from the general fund, and $50,000 from the highway fund balance. So that would be a total increase in spending in the highway budget of $150,000. Then we talked about the sewer district. Now our sewer department is run ably by Mike O'Brien and his team. They just took on another 2,000 customers, Crescent Waste, the former Crescent Waste Services. And we also had a public hearing this past Monday on the town assuming ownership of Tremont Estates, which is a small number, about just a few dozen homes. So that one's not huge, but it is more customers. So Now with the new responsibility, which is quite an increase, there would be a new laborer position in the sewer department and somewhat of a restructuring in the hierarchy within the department. Mike O'Brien would still remain the head of the department. Rob Van Buskirk would be promoted as the number 2 in the department, and that would come with an increase of 5,696. Now, there's a lot of things we can talk about as far as the equipment line in the sewer department. Mark, we had reduced the equipment line by 76,252. Can you talk a little bit about year to year where the equipment line is for sewer?
Yes, 1 second, please. So the the equipment line right now in the original tentative budget was $195,256. Previous years, last couple, in 2003, he had budgeted 203,000, and he's probably projected to spend about $35,000 in 2020 in the equipment line. So we did have higher spending in the past couple of years because that was part of that had to do also with the rehabilitation of the sewer on in Country Knolls.
Mm-hmm.
So so taking the 195 that we had in the tentative budget, it's still, and reducing it by 76,000, it still leaves them more than $100,000 in equipment for 2021.
Right. Now, in the budget workshops, Mike did talk about some need, well, he made a strong case for a need of a large truck, a jetter truck as they're called. It's an expensive little piece of equipment. An annual lease payment would be about $60,000. Now, you know, we can continue to talk about that. And you know, with a lease, we do have some flexibility. We could actually take delivery of the equipment next year and defer the first payment to 2022. Is that right, Mark?
Correct. If you, depending on how you set up the lease. When we do capital leases, you can do it either at the pay it at the beginning of the year of the lease, or you can wait until you pay at the end. One of the leases right now that we have, we did not make a payment in the first year when we got the money, but we started making the payments in the subsequent years. So.
Yeah, so I mean, we have some flexibility there. I think he made a strong case for it. You know, obviously the growing number of sewer customers, they've done a great job, you know, with their current resources. But you know, I just see obviously a continuation of growing responsibilities, and with that, the on-call responsibilities grow. And I think that's another strong case for adding another full-time person to add to the rotation of being on call. It's a seven-day-a-week operation when there's an emergency, and you know, these systems that have been abandoned to the town aren't new. They're all decades old, and so issues do occur. And then there were some other minor changes to Woodland Hills, Dutch Meadows, and Clifton Park Sewer number 2, which should have been 175. That's the last thing on the second sheet. Was initially listed at 180. So those were the budget amendments proposed a couple of weeks ago, and I just wanted to go through those again here. Perhaps, you know, leading into that discussion, there's a couple other things that, you know, we should probably discuss. I gave a presentation at the meeting where these amendments were discussed about possible changes at the transfer station that Now, there were, I threw out various ideas, both for budgetary and operational. And, I think we can break out what I believe should be considered during the budget part of the discussion. The operational items, those can be handled at another time. But the savings would result from the consolidation of the departments and the elimination of a supervisory position. So really, for the budget, as far as the budget is concerned, there's three items. One, the new loader that was in the budget amendments, eliminating the supervisory position at the transfer station, um, and the increases for the three employees that would be accepting additional responsibilities. Now, the other ideas that were discussed, such as the permit system as it is today, having a cutoff point. You have a permit, say, first quarter of 2021, you'd be grandfathered in and be able to buy a permit for every year until you decided you didn't want to be a customer of the transfer station anymore. So in effect, you'd be grandfathered in and be able to continue to purchase permits. And other folks that would like to utilize the transfer station would move to a bag system similar to a system that other transfer stations use, where for example, a 33-gallon bag, Clifton Park bag that you would purchase would cost $4, and that would hold, a few standard kitchen garbage bags. So we talked about that. Wednesdays, the transfer station's open from 7 to 11. I proposed considering closing on Wednesdays, which would be another opportunity for savings. So there were some other ideas that we discussed, or I proposed, but again, those aren't really necessary for tonight. Those are operational. They can change at any time, leading right up to the time we sell permits again for next year, which would be the end of the first quarter of 2021. At that time, I also discussed the reality of where the transfer station is. We talked annually in recent years about the continued decline of the number of permit holders for household garbage. They've continued to decline, and each year, the senior permits go up a little, and the general permits go down quite a bit, and that's because you have people aging into the senior category, and there just isn't new people buying general permits to make up the difference for the people moving into the senior category. So, for the first time, we have more senior that I ever remember, unless it happened way back in the beginning, many years ago, but we've always had more general permits than senior permits. That changed. Now senior permits are quite a bit higher than the general permits. So it's not a good, it's just, if this was a business and you were assessing your revenues and the trajectory of your business and your customer base and future prospects of the facility, it's not a good business trend. And you couple that with the fact we already have a very heavy subsidy of about $150,000 a year. If we had the opportunity to save some money through consolidation, I think it's something we should absolutely do. and move that money to other needs, particularly in the area of infrastructure. So, and as far as that goes, as far as that consolidation goes, I don't see it as a difficult transition whatsoever. And sharing resources will certainly benefit buildings and grounds and benefit the transfer station. The other larger item that was part of the budget amendments that I proposed was a new memorandum of understanding with the New York State Police. And I did send you an updated edition. The captain from the state police that I've been dealing with in administration asked if they could add one paragraph, which is 2.5. I said, well, there hasn't been any action taken on the MOU. I think it's a reasonable request, so yeah. So if you want to add it in, go ahead. And you can see, I mean, all of these renditions that we reviewed are all on New York State Police letterhead. So they're writing it, based on our discussions back and forth. Some things I want to point out, when you look at the second whereas. Whereas in connection with said arrangement and as considered for said increased police presence and protection, town has heretofore agreed with the state police to provide facilities for use as a patrol station. So, they're saying very clearly that for this arrangement, in consideration, there is an increased police presence and protection. Now, what are they referring to directly? Well, we provide roughly 5,500 square feet free of charge, right at exit 9, extremely valuable asset for the state police, close to the North Bay, which is where they like to be as well, for free. We also provide water and some other things. Now, the term of the MOU will be effective as of the date we execute the agreement and shall continue in effect until December 31st, 2030. Either party can give 60 days written notice to termination. So again, we're talking about their commitment for increased coverage in exchange for what the town is providing. Now, in 2.4, that is where they begin to list, in addition to the free space of 5,500 square feet, the items that the town is responsible for. And really, that's what the whole MOU is about. We have increased police presence and protection, and then the town has many responsibilities that we need to execute on their behalf. So I don't want to get into all the details, but basically, number one is replacing carpeting. Number two is replacing flooring with commercial grade vinyl composite. In the lobby area, there is a glass area there. We would install level 3 tempered glass in the front lobby. That's a safety measure that they asked for. We will replace 3 existing doors that provide entry into what we call the police barracks with commercial grade doors, door latch, and lock. And they have a particular lock, a Cava Simplex 8148 that they spec out. So we would replace the 3 doors and also install this new lock on all 3. We will also provide them with paint, and they will paint the facility. And then 2.5, which is one that they asked to add recently, is understood and agreed by and between the parties here too that the town shall, during the duration of this memorandum of understanding and any renewal hereof at the town's expense, every 7 years or sooner by agreement of the parties, or if reasonably determined by the town to be necessary, repair or replace as necessary, both inside and outside, the entire demised premises within with adequate coats of paint or varnish or clean and applied preservatives as the case may be. Basically, what they're saying is every 7 years, they'd like to get together, look at what the needs are, if there are any needs, kind of like what we're doing now, and we would mutually agree on further improvements. Now, 2.6 is extremely important to the state police because it is a commitment that if the town were to move from that property and build a new building, that we would commit to providing them with 6,000 square feet of office space as part of that project. So again, something that's incredibly valuable to the New York State Police. So we're restating our commitment to offer a significant amount of free office space now and in the future. Commits the town to upgrades that involve internal office improvements as well as additional security measures, solidifies our very successful partnership with the New York State Police. So yes, there are a fair amount of responsibilities that we would accept by approving this MOU. I think overall, our partnership with the state police is extremely valuable to us, as I believe it is to them. And we as a town board have the opportunity to certainly make a long-term commitment through this MOU. Sergeant Meehan, how are you tonight?
All right.
Good to see you. Sergeant Meehan is lifelong, or close to lifelong, Clifton Park resident, right?
Yeah, born here, born in Clifton Knolls, 10 to 12 kids. Grew up in a Van Patten house like everywhere else. And of my 22-year career, I've been here for 18 of those years.
Actually, Steve, could you come right up here, please, Sergeant? That way, can hear you a little better. I appreciate you coming here tonight, just to answer any questions and talk about the new proposed MOU.
Yeah, so basically the MOU with that payment was established previous supervisor years ago. I guess the town was looking at getting their own police department 20 or 30 years ago, and this was kind of a replacement for that. And I think we've grown so big, even without that MOU, we've gone from 10, 12 troopers to 25 troopers, 6 investigators, 3 sergeants, and the state has been gracious, kept up with us as our numbers go up. We also have Half-Moon. We're talking 55 to 60,000 people almost with no police department. So ourselves and the sheriffs, we do it all. We work well together down here. It's like kind of like a friendly competition. Whoever gets there first handles it. But we back each other up, and we always help each other out. And we've amongst all this stuff, yeah, there's times they send us to New York City, they send us to Rochester, they send us all over. But we've always been able to hire overtime to fill the shifts, to keep people here 24/7, and there's always people here. We always have authority to pull from other places to bring troopers down here, and it's very rare a town this big, and a town as big as Half-Moon don't have a police department. So I just encourage all we're asking for is just a few building improvements, and they are great. They fix everything. They've always, like I said, every time something goes wrong there, they take care of it. We're just it's a 20, 30-year-old building, just needs a few upgrades. And, we're here, we're committed to you, and we're not going anywhere.
And those numbers you were talking about, Sergeant, that's just in the space that we provide you, right, as a town. I mean, so you get, and what was it again, 25 troopers?
Yeah, we have
6
25
investigators.
troopers right now, 3 sergeants, 6 investigators. And for Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, we have minimum staffing. If somebody calls in sick, something goes wrong, we have to bring coverage in. We always do. The people in town are great to us. You guys have been great to work with, and we're not going anywhere. Even if we scrap this MOU, we're still going to be here. We're not going anywhere. A startup cost for a town this size for a police department would be such a huge impact on the tax. It makes sense to me.
All right. Are there any questions for Sergeant at this time? All right, well, I just want to take this opportunity to tell you how much, our town supports what you're doing on a daily basis. You're right, the state police and the sheriff work very well together. And that is our team along with our security personnel. And so we appreciate what you're doing each and every day, not only in Clifton Park, but throughout the capital region of New York State.
Thank you too, and people in this town have been great to us my whole career. I'm glad I'm not a city cop having to deal with what they have to deal with.
Mhm.
We have a great spot up here. I don't dread going to work like a lot of city cops do.
Mhm.
Thank you guys, and I'm here at the station all the time, you guys. I'm always available. Email, stop in. We do everything we can, and try to help you guys however we can.
Mr. Morelli? you got a question?
Yeah, I just have a few questions. First of all, thanks for what you and all your folks do for our town. So 25, 3, and 6 is what the current complement of troopers
Yeah.
is? So how long has it been like that? Does that change annually? If you dictate that number?
Yeah, it just goes really with administration. It's not a set number. Like right now, there's no academies that are going right now. There's a lot of training classes that aren't going on right now, so we're full staff right now. There's been some times we've been down to 12 or 15 troopers, but 25 is the most we've ever seen there, and that's what we're carrying right now, and we try to maintain that. Obviously, who knows what's going to happen in the future with with the state taxes and budget revenues, but for now, that's what we're maintaining, and those numbers are based off calls for service, arrests, things like that. It's just figured out by the administration and Albany of how many troopers get assigned for where.
Is it reviewed annually or how often is it
Yeah,
reviewed?
it's reviewed annually, all the time, every budget year. It's part of our budgeting process.
And the review process is mainly crime level?
Yeah, FBI statistics.
Does it take into account population or growth or decrease in size as well? Or
That I'd have to go look into that.
that's it? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
So the execution of the MOU, would that have an impact on the staffing levels that you're talking about?
That MOU right now, I mean, the increase is just, I think that's kind of more a generic thing. When this MOU was written 20 years ago, there were 6 or 8 troopers assigned here, and now there's 25. So I guess it's kind of just piggybacking on the original MOU from 20 years ago. Our police presence has increased significantly. It's doubled or tripled during that time. So I think it's more just referring back to that. But the town still keeps growing and the numbers keep growing, and they gotta send more bodies this way.
So as far as you know, with your expectation, if we execute this, if the town executes this MOU with the state police, the staffing level will not change, increase.
Right now, they'll probably stay the same.
Anyone else? Thank you, Sergeant. I appreciate it. And again, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you guys all again.
So, and I appreciate our, level of communication, whether it's with myself or directly with buildings and grounds when they need something within the barracks. And as Sergeant just said, we're very quick to fix something that breaks or supply something they need because the relationship is extremely important to the town of Clifton Park. And this MOU not only affords increased police presence for the town, but also, again, firmly solidifies our short-term and long-term commitment to the state police in providing what we've provided, plus all of the items that I mentioned earlier. So thanks again. So that was another item that I felt we should talk a little bit more about, since it was one of the larger proposed budget amendments. So at this time, Dan Clemens, Dan, I'd like you to come up here for a minute. You know, and I think, as I said, I think at this point, it is, important to just stay focused on the operational side of things, the budgetary side of things, not necessarily those operational changes that were proposed. But, as far as you can see, with a consolidation between buildings and grounds and the transfer station, a lot of that responsibility would fall on you. And from your estimation, and obviously you've been with the town how many years?
22 and a half years.
Yeah, so you're quite familiar with town operations, I guess we could say at this point. Do you see a consolidation of the two departments as a positive, a negative, and do you think that it's something that you could execute successfully?
I certainly see it as a positive for buildings and grounds and for the transfer station. And I'm 100% confident that I could execute the merge of the two departments. We've kind of worked together already, and it's always been a good working relationship with every department in town, and say with the state police, with the highway department, with the sewer department. We kind of share resources, pool together. So this is kind of make a permanent shared services, in my opinion. So I would say today, just a quick example of something that happened today. Don McCune was having trouble with his salt. He put a starter on it. Kieran had gone down and helped him put the starter on. They're wearing it back the rest of the way. So I got sparks coming out of the thing. So I ran right down there and helped him out, and he figured it out, and we got it. And just had to just shim in it. The shim was missing. They put it back in there. Now it was fine. While we're down here, hey, we're trying to mow. We got a hydraulic leak in this mower. They got a fairly old mower down there. And I said, well, can you help us lay on it? So let's fix. I'll have another mower down here tomorrow morning. So where I got there, will be down there before they get there tomorrow. They can get their mowing done because I have enough spare one, right? Because we're mostly transitioning to pickup right now. We don't have to cut as much grass. So that was just today. And when one thing that happened this afternoon, which is an example where if it was all under one roof, there'd be less to go through. It'd be one simple call to me, and it would be done deal, just like that.
Well, we have the equipment there on site too.
Certainly.
But why would it help buildings and grounds? I mean, I think it's pretty clear how it would help the highway department. I mean, we have additional resources and equipment and some manpower. So as far as how it's going to help the transfer station, I think it's pretty clear operationally from a budgetary situation. If the long-term trend continues and permits continue to drop, while we're carrying a large subsidy, you're going to have a shrinking number of permit holders subsidized by a larger number of residents who aren't using the facility for household garbage. And that was the original intent. I mean, when DEC went through the state barnstorming and having everybody close their landfills, transfer stations in most cases took the place of the landfill. And that was the place to bring your household garbage after the landfill was closed. So there's the ways that the transfer station is going to benefit operationally, and I think will certainly improve operations, but also preserve the transfer station as a viable entity. Does it offer a tremendous service? Yes. Have we added services over the years to make it that much more valuable? Yes. But I think the services are one thing. From a financial standpoint, when you have opportunities to save money, it only makes sense, again, for the viability of the transfer station itself. But how would it help the buildings and grounds department?
Well, just in the facility itself, the building, that's more resource for us. We can use that building once the thing gets kind of reorganized and straightened around. It needs a good cleaning and straightening out. And we can put more equipment inside. We can utilize a whole welding station down there, which we do not have in our beautiful new building next door. We don't have a welding station. So that would be a place we can go down and do that. A loader. We don't have a big loader. We have smaller equipment. It'll be useful for us. And there are times when we do need to have a big loader. And instead of having to go through and borrow and arrange and stuff, it'd be a lot simpler. We could go down there and do what we have to do, or bring a loader up here to move snow or whatever. That's another advantage. And the people themselves, having them to be able to do things elsewhere throughout the town. So on a Wednesday or something like that, or if you ended up not doing a Wednesday, I could certainly use those people throughout the town. So obviously we have miles and miles of trail and acres of property that we maintain. And having those extra 4 or 5 sets of hands out there for even 4 hours, that's another crew that can go out and accomplish a whole other task somewhere to get a big job done. We work out like a work order project crew, and we have property maintenance crews, and so they can use any of those to split up. That's how we kind of attack our mission.
Yeah, Don McCune, who, he's been with the town for 26 years now, Mark, I think.
Yeah.
So, he obviously is well acquainted with the transfer station and been down there a very long time. And I do have faith in his ability to do some things that are necessary, for any kind of improvement that, you and he and everybody that's working together feels should be implemented. Is there anything else that you think is important to this equation here?
Well, I think really my theory and how I kind of operate the department is just very committed to the public service, as we were just mentioning. We're all proud public servants in this department, and that's what we're here to do, is to serve the residents. And I kind of look forward to improving that service at the transfer station and elsewhere in the building grounds. Where we've added people and equipment and everything, I think we can even provide more for everybody. Make it a little bit better than it is now, which always looking to do that every day, get better.
Sure. I appreciate it. I know some of you have spoken to Dan in the last couple of weeks. Are there any questions that you might have for him at this point?
Well, Dan, I'm not surprised that, to hear your enthusiasm for this. I mean, I think you're the kind of person who take on pretty much any mission that was assigned to you and see positively of, not that I don't think you truly believe it. I guess my only hesitation in this is just from an equity standpoint. Are there other employees besides yourself here in town hall that are acting on additional responsibilities? And if so, are we being fair? If the answer is no, the only 3 people that are going to take on additional responsibilities are the 3 of you. Then so be it. But if there's other individuals, whether in buildings and grounds or other departments, that are going to have to pitch in to make up for the work, and they're not being compensated for that, to me, that's an equity issue. I think that's something we need to look at as part of the process. They're fair to them as well, not just you guys.
I can speak for buildings and grounds as far as what we have here. I don't see any of my regular employees having to take on any additional responsibility outside of their normal job description as is. Be sure if they might end up going down there to help do something, and they might come up helping us, but it's all within the same titles. The people down there are the same titles. We have MEOs, we have laborers, we have HOs, but we don't have fill right now. We have senior MEOs. It's all basically the same work, so I don't see anything additional responsibility other than this. It's just changing location more than anything to be different. Would something maybe change after a few months of operating it? Sure, that's a possibility. You may find that somebody else ends up having to. Sure, I don't think would be a problem addressing it. And I know I could come to the board with anything like that. You guys all been very supportive of our department all along, but honestly, right off the get-go, I think that's the people that are going to take on the initial extra responsibility. I don't really see it other than that having more to take as far as that town hall. I don't know.
Well, I would say, regardless, including in your department, I think it's fair if anybody takes on additional responsibilities, as we assess this 3, 6, 9 months down the road. If someone has to take on additional responsibilities, then it's fair to compensate them accordingly, for that. Understanding, you never know what the future holds and things can change.
I think the only possibility could be in the paperwork side of things, but Don says he can handle it, and we'll see how it goes. But if for some reason he doesn't handle it to the satisfaction of me, and then further on to the board, then maybe they have somebody else who to do that paperwork for the part of help me out. But at this point, my plan is that Don knows how to do it, and he can do it. If I find after a couple of months that he's not doing great, I'm responsible for it. I certainly will recommend a change.
I'm sure you hold them accountable.
Absolutely, you know that.
Well, and, how many POs, do we do through the Buildings and Grounds Department at this point?
The Buildings and Grounds Department does like between 12 and 1,500 a year. The transfer station is significantly less. They're probably
I think they
100 to 200.
Yeah, 80 was what they were at, last I asked Jeff, a week or two ago, they were at 80. I think we are up in, the 1,200 and some at this point right now. We've gone up to as much as 2,000 purchase orders when we started.
Yeah.
And, we were a little less this year with COVID, so we didn't have as many activities for purchase orders coming into play, but 4th of July.
4th of July alone
Yeah,
is
there's a-
about 830.
Yeah, there's 5 purchase orders that have to be done for the 4th of July alone.
Correct.
So we're a little lower than normal, but still we're up in the 1250 or something, I think, right now. We're working.
Somewhere in that range, yes.
Yeah, so, I think, at this point, 80, 90, whatever it'll be at the end of the year, 100, that's something that Don has, if he's the transfer station manager, and I did put, 3, proposed job descriptions in the box. I think he's more than capable of handling that paperwork, as well as the monthly reports or whatever else he needs.
I know we had this month's report done over there.
Yeah.
I just happened to go down there and stop. So, yeah, I did the monthly report. Okay, well, I'm not report.
Yeah, he's excited as well, I know that.
Oh, he is. He's enthusiastic.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah, he's a good long-term employee for the town.
I certainly believe in what everybody's telling me that he can do. I've known Don for a long time. I've been here some he's been here longer, but I've worked with him throughout my entire career. I think he can do it. I'm not to prove it to him, but I certainly believe what I've been told. That comes from trusted people. Jack told me to go pretty well.
Tony,
Yeah, just, any concern about decrease in service at the transfer station? I mean, I know our citizens depend on the transfer station, proposing eliminating a full position. So is that something you're concerned about, or do you have enough people or synergies you think you're gaining by combining departments to ensure that we still have the same level of service?
No, I think it's certainly a legitimate concern, but I don't think it's going to be an issue. Like I said a little bit, I think we're going to increase the service. I'm sure you have enough people to cover what Jeff was doing. Besides the managerial part, which I'm going to cover, he did a lot of on the ground, hands-on mechanical kind of work. The guy was a good mechanic. The line just broke on the machine down there in the starter. Jeff would have been the guy who would have jumped in there and fixed that. He was like that. But I have plenty of people around. I've got a lot of variety of skills that are already in the Buildings and Grounds Department that were willing to jump in and do it for any of that kind of stuff. That can go down and jump in that loader and go pile lawn debris when it gets bad, or pull a box out once it's full, fix something or weld it, or anything like that. We've certainly got the talent to cover any of those areas.
Yeah, I mean, I would just, to echo Councilman Mellon's point, we may learn a little more in 3, 6, or 9 months after if and when we consolidate these departments. And if that's not the case, if we're stretching our employees too much, or we're getting complaints that we're not used to getting at the transfer station, I think that's something we just need to look at, as a department head, as a board, and potentially make an adjustment mid-year, maybe.
So I agree with that.
yeah, right now, there's 4 people working full-time at the transfer station. One is a seasonal employee that, we've kept on because, once Jeff decided that he was going to retire, at that point, we didn't know what the future might hold as far as personnel. So, we have kept, the seasonal employee on. And he's worked there in the past seasonally, so, he's very familiar with the operation. That's the current complement to full-time employees. I mean, 4 full-time employees, and they've been working Sundays as well. Recent weeks with the town fall cleanup. We have a few weekends where we're open on Sundays for yard waste only. But with those 4 people, no problem covering, even with that additional day that we can open.
They haven't, but they've done well down there. So we have extra to compliment. I want to also point out, you mentioned those guys, a couple of them did work for Buildings and Grounds in the past.
Yeah.
So, the full-time guy Todd worked with Buildings and Grounds, and he first came in town for a few years. Then he was here in seasonal, and Mike, the seasonal down, and did work. He was at the seasonal also.
Yeah, Benny was seasonal for, how many years?
And a couple, 2-3 years,
Yeah.
and he was a school bus driver, so he had summers off, and he came to work with us.
And again, full time.
Yep.
And, and that's a good example because, right, with the restructure that this board did, in recent years at the Buildings and Grounds Department, the 3 senior MEO positions, it has offered some additional upward mobility within that department. As one department, that upward mobility would be certainly right in front of all the employees of both departments. And right now, one of those senior MEO positions is open due to Pat Gibbons' retirement. There's other employees that have 25, 30 years under their belt, so there might be some future retirements in the next few years. And who knows at this point? But I think it's important to stress that ascendancy up the ladder within the town is available for the employees, and if it's one department, I think that symmetry is improved that much more.
There's also another title that is available that is not for, heavy equipment operator. Currently in the Buildings and Grounds as it is now, we don't have a piece of heavy equipment. So I couldn't promote somebody to a heavy equipment operator. Combined together, with a big loader, that's a piece of heavy equipment. That's a position that you could create. It's been there before. I think Don was the HCO there before himself at one time before he moved to the assistant. And so that's another opportunity that comes the other direction from the guys that are in the current Buildings and Grounds. Be an AGO.
Yeah. And we also talked about it, if there was consolidation, certainly when we met with the union, I was sure to point this out, that if you were hired based on the fact you work Monday through Friday, you wouldn't be asked to work a Saturday down at the transfer station. From time to time, somebody might volunteer to do that, or want to do that because maybe they missed a day or two during the week, don't want to use up all their paid time off and would like to work a Saturday, but it would be strictly voluntary. So I think that's an important point. But anybody new hired in the combined department from this point forward, they would be hired on the basis that they may be asked to work a Saturday. I mean, right now, we have plenty of people working at the transfer station only. So that's certainly not an issue at this point. 4 is, I think, more than enough full-time employees, that's for sure. Okay, any other questions for Dan at this point? Yes.
Dan, thank you. I appreciate you spending a lot of time with myself and some of the other board members helping us to explain this consolidation.
Absolutely.
One thing, when I was talking with Margie Cassidy, your senior clerk, she's under the impression that she is going to be doing some additional paperwork for you. She told me that she would be supporting you and Don with additional paperwork. And has something changed since I spoke to her last?
Yeah, I think that's what-
Don is going to be taking on the brunt of that additional work?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. I think that's what I was talking about earlier, that Don would be doing those. The paperwork is the purchase orders. Filling out the purchase order, and paying the bill when it comes in, doing the voucher and all that, which Don has been trained to do and can do at that level of 80, where I think give him his chance at it, for sure. And if it's not working out, then that is a major part of what Marty does in our department. He does a lot of things, but that is a big part with the 1,500 to 2,000 a month. That's a lot of big piles of bills that come in and getting them all done and all that.
Yeah.
So
It is a lot, and I
If
think,
it, turns out where it wasn't adequate, what Don is doing, then she may then take on those responsibilities. But other than, if that doesn't happen, I'm not going to put any more responsibility on.
yeah, that is a significant amount of work, I think, to add to the plate, and I think that we would be remiss if we did not consider proper compensation for her with the additional work. So I'm pleased to know that, you have that worked out, and confidence in Don and his ability to complete that, and, I'm glad that that's been worked out. So again, thank you for
If she's not
clarifying.
gonna be paid for that, so I'm certainly not gonna put the work on her.
And I'm pleased to see, Mr. Supervisor, that you have increased the salaries for the three gentlemen from the 15,994 to the 29,13. I think that is fair after the discussions I had with you, John and Kieran. I think you're all pretty satisfied with those increases and with the additional responsibilities.
As far as speaking for myself, I'm certainly satisfied with it.
And the other gentleman I spoke with as well. So thank you again for clarifying those questions.
I want to make one point about that too. Now, that was, that number is the second step of an increase. So if they were to assume the responsibilities in 2020, we spoke of, I think, a smaller increase and then another increase that would be a normal increase that you would receive into the next budget year based on the established raises in the budget as well as the union contract. But at this point, we're getting late into the year. And so that's something, I mean, I have no problem keeping it the way it is. I think we need to keep in mind that that increase for the additional responsibility for those three individuals is certainly less than just what the fringe benefits, health and otherwise, would be for a new employee, which are pretty high, right, Mark? So that would be less than just the benefit line for a new employee. Okay, good. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. But, Dan's perspective was very important in this matter, and he's certainly proven himself to be very capable along with his team. He's done a very good job. And, I think it's important also to note that, yes, we do carry a good number of buildings and grounds employees currently through the year, but we also hire about a dozen seasonally. And they work during the summer months. Some start in April, some later. The college kids usually start a little later. But, so we do have a strong seasonal contingent that adds to the resources of the Buildings and Grounds Department during their busiest part of the year. So anyway, those are the proposed budget amendments, and certainly more than, if anybody else has others, we can certainly talk about those as well. Monday, just one more thing. Monday, we talked about the prospect of creating a new position at the senior center. Raina Manafo has just been tremendous. From day one that we assumed operational responsibility of the senior center, she's done an incredible job there. She'll be moving, she continues to work part-time, so she would move to the highway department part-time in the near future. We did have some limited discussion at the last meeting about the proposed job of senior center program coordinator. I'll just reiterate what I said the other night, that I asked Raina to write down all of her responsibilities and activities, which she did. That was put into the job description. Tom, is there anything else that we should know about about this job description. You worked with the county on the mechanics of it, so.
No, I think we'd be creating the first such title in town for that position.
Okay, so that's another, now, as far as the logistics of if the town board were to create this position, would it make sense as part of this discussion, could it be funded as a budget amendment? And then a resolution would officially create the position at the next town board meeting or a future town board meetings? Would that be the best way to go about this?
If you want included in the 2021 budget, you should, propose its inclusion tonight, and then we can adopt it. We have it in the adopted budget, when that budget's adopted. I believe you're planning on doing that Monday. Are you planning, is the board planning on adopting the final budget on Monday?
No, we're scheduled for the 16th.
16th.
Right, it has to be done by the 20th of
Yeah.
November.
Okay, so you would want to discuss it tonight, discuss the funding for it, and then you can include it in the final budget.
Okay, and certainly open to discussing any other, items that have, maybe came from the budget workshop, or one item that did come from the budget workshop that, Lou had mentioned to me again, Mark, was, the supplies, the medical supplies.
He was talking as to a one central location, and we can, typically right now we charge a various about the departments, but we could adjust and really just charge his line for all this, a line for him for all of the supplies.
But yeah, he was concerned that there wasn't, anything in there, but I didn't think that was the case, so I thought I would ask you.
I don't believe there's right now, a one specific line, but with some of them, where he is and what he has, I can pull from different lines and put them into that line from the different budgets through a budget amendment, even, before we pass the budget, or even when he says, okay, this is how much money I think we're going to spend in supplies for 2021.
Right.
We can make a budget amendment, a neutral budget amendment, and pull from the various lines and put it all into one, so that so it's easier for him to keep track of.
Okay, all right. That's fair. Actually, I also want to note the sheriff, contract would go to 584.
It was a 2% that they were proposing increase.
Yes. So,
Yes.
It goes up about 2% every year.
That's been consistently the last couple of years.
All right, so I guess it would go 584, yeah, 21. Yeah. All right, so I'll open it up for discussion at this point. On some of these items, or anything else that anybody would like to discuss before we go to public hearing.
Mr. Supervisor, I have a concern. It was a lovely presentation by Sergeant Meehan. Our New York State troopers do a fantastic job here. There's no doubt. And I support this MOU, but I still don't see where the reductions, the $200,000 reductions are being made. It's not specified in the MOU, nor is it specified in the revised MOU that you sent us a few days ago. So what is being cut from the New York, from the police, law enforcement police contract?
Well, we currently pay them about $200,000. What was it scheduled to be in 21?
So
Two?
we get it it was about 207,000 that we paid for 2019. I haven't gotten a bill for 2020 yet.
Mhm.
So it's somewhere in that
So it'll be about
range.
207, 210.
Yes.
All right, so that, there wouldn't be that payment any longer. Instead, there would be money pushed into, other lines as I detailed earlier.
Reductions. I still don't see. So we have paid them in the past, Mark.
We
X
do
amount of
pay them,
dollars every
we,
year, and they
and
don't want that payment.
We've been paying them for decades.
we've been paying it, yes. And for example, the 2018 payment I got in December of 2019. So
So they don't want, they're telling us that they don't want $200,000 from us to put towards their operations. Is that what New York State Police is telling us?
yes, I think
No,
that's what.
no, I don't think that's what they're telling us at all. What they're saying is that, as it said in the second whereas, in connection with said arrangement and as consideration for said increased police presence and protection, you heard from Sergeant Meehan as to what that level of commitment is in the town of Clifton Park. The town of Clifton Park must agree to the following, and that's most of the MOU. I mean, the MOU is only 3-4 pages, 3.5 pages, but it lists everything that we are required to do as part of this agreement, which I think is very extensive. And I think at this point, what's important to them is not only improvements to the area, safety, as well as the flooring and the other things that I went through earlier, safety measures, but also the long-term commitment. And that it's a huge value for them to have 5,500 square feet of free space at Exit 9 in Clifton Park. In addition to all the improvements that we would agree upon executing in the near future, as well as the commitment that if we build a new building, we would have 6,000 square feet of office space for them. So that, there's an incredible amount of value for the state police in this agreement.
I still don't see where the $200,000 are being cut from. I don't know, is it just me? I don't know if anyone else sees where that money is being cut from. I mean, is it being, all I see are expenses from the town, which I
Yeah.
fully support.
Right.
I support the new doors, the new locks, paint. I support the carpet,
Do you see a charge for services?
a charge for services.
Do you see, we've been paying them for many years, but there's nothing in here that says that the town will pay X amount of dollars. So,
So we've been paying them for 20 years.
what about that?
All of a
Yeah,
sudden,
I think even
we don't
longer.
need to pay them
Yeah.
anymore.
I think
Yes.
they've been paying since the early 90s.
Sergeant Meehan was very, very good at supporting the MOU with all the things that we are going to provide to them, which
Yeah.
again, I fully support. But I don't know if Sergeant Meehan was the correct gentleman to speak about where this $200,000 discrepancy is. I would like clarification. When you proposed this to us 2.5 weeks ago, you did not get clarification. When I asked the following day, when this was proposed to us, I did not get clarification. I was hopeful when I saw Sergeant Meehan here today that he would provide clarification, but his presentation was clearly in support of the MOU. I don't see where we are saving $200,000. I would like to see details. I want to make sure that the town of Clifton Park is adequately protected. I did see in the second whereas where it said increased police presence, but we've gone from, since our MOU with them has been established, they've gone from 6 to 25
Right.
patrols or, shifts for us.
Yeah.
And we've been paying them. I just don't know what has changed So have we been wasting our money that whole time and paying them frivolously? Or, I mean, I just don't see where this cut is being, what is being cut? Supervisor Leon had stated that he is unsure about what the state taxes and the budget revenues are gonna look like from the state budget. So if we're, if he's unsure of what they're gonna get from the state in this fiscal, this moment of fiscal stress, we know New York State is not strong fiscally. Shouldn't we just retain this $200,000 in case they need it to ensure proper coverage for Clifton Park?
Well, Sergeant Meehan was involved in the meetings, but he didn't write this. This is coming from above him.
But this does
This
not
is a-
explain where
this
the
is-
cuts are.
This is coming from the New York State administration.
Okay.
So when you
So perhaps
have
they
an
should explain
agreement,
to us where the cuts are. I
I-
don't
I
see where the
don't-
cuts are being made.
they aren't cutting anything.
You have proposed to us to reduce the law enforcement police contracts by $200,000. Where is that money coming from? What is being cut?
There's nothing being cut. Again, you have a contract in front of you. It has a listing of everything that the town is responsible for
What expenses?
and
Yes.
everything that we would commit to,
Yes.
which is all extremely valuable to the New York State Police.
Yeah.
And an incredible relationship for them as well as the town of Clifton Park. So, I don't understand. I mean, you have a contract, it says what it says. I don't even know how to answer that question. We've been paying them. This agreement
I don't
does
support
not
cutting
have, $200,000.
Like, I do not support cutting $200,000 from our law enforcement line.
So this is, as I said before, this is written on New York State police letterhead.
I saw it.
Okay, so this isn't something that I dreamed up. This isn't something that Sergeant Meehan and I got together with on a weekend and put together. This has been a very professional, series of discussions and negotiations leading to this point.
When did
And,
these discussions
and
start?
they are very, very pleased with this agreement.
Okay. When were these discussions?
I don't know why we wouldn't, when it's a win-win for both sides. I have
I
no
don't see it as a
idea.
win, that's why I
Oh,
want
all
to
right,
hear
okay.
this.
Well, then that's a whole
Details.
different thing.
So, I had requested a copy of our previous MOU, so that maybe that there would be some answers in that. That was not provided, that was actually, met with silence from you. So I'm looking for answers, I want to support our law enforcement, but I cannot support a reduction in the, what you had proposed to us 2.5 weeks ago.
Well, if you support this, you're supporting law enforcement. You heard it tonight. The people that we've been dealing with in the administration of the state police like this agreement. This is the agreement that they fully support. I don't know why we wouldn't say, yes, this is great for both sides. Let's move forward with our relationship. I don't know.
I guess for me, it's confusing because we've been paying the state police $200,000 a year for at least 20 years. So this MOU, in essence, says we're gonna make one-time perhaps upgrades totaling a few tens of thousands of dollars, let's say $50,000, but we're not gonna pay them $200,000 a year for the next 10 years. And it defies logic for me to understand how from the state police perspective, they're gonna turn down $2 million in revenue over the next 10 years in return for $50,000 in improvements to a facility. I don't understand it. If the New York State Police will agree to that, then that's great. I don't know who's doing that negotiating for them. But if they're gonna provide us the exact same level of service for the next 10 years, with us not paying them $2 million in return for $50,000 of facility improvements, I mean, am I understanding this correctly? That's essentially what this is?
Well, like I said, the agreement's only a little over 3 pages, so I mean, it's
That's
pretty simple.
That's not the question. I mean, are they gonna, I don't mean to look at Mark. but
You know,
are they
I
gonna
work
send-
for the town of Clifton Park.
Are they gonna send us a
So,
bill?
I work for the town of Clifton Park, and like I said, we've got a long-term commitment on the free space, 5,500 square feet, and a commitment to, if we build a new building, that they would have, at least 6,000 square feet in that building.
So did you commit to us then that we're not, the town is not going to receive a bill for $200,000-ish a year moving forward for the next 10 years? And that the level of police
Yeah.
protection we receive will remain the same?
Absolutely.
How did you negotiate that?
What do you mean?
I mean, how are the state police willing to forego $1,950,000 in revenue? for the
I
next-
don't,
for
I
the
don't
next
think,
10
I don't
years?
think they look at it that way. I think they look at it based on the types of relationships and agreements they have now, and what the town is willing to do in partnership with them, and they find it extremely valuable.
1.9,
If I was them-
$1,950,000 value?
If I was them, looking at this, obviously, they agree, it's a valuable agreement.
The agreement itself, standing alone, to me, is unobjectionable. It's unobjectionable. It strains credulity to think that the New York State Police are agreeing to forego $2 million in revenue from the town of Clifton Park over the next 10 years for $50,000 improvements to a facility that's, what, 30 years old? It just strains, it strains credulity. I'd love to see
Well,
some
again,
sort
I
of-
mean,
I'd love to see
you're
some sort of,
focused-
some sort of documentation or evidence from the New York State Police
Yes, from
that
the,
they will not come to us in a year from now, or send us a letter in December of 2021, looking for payments, or 2022, looking for payments 2021. We have no expectation of that.
and I think if there's any line that we should be retaining, it should be our law enforcement line. So,
There's no guarantee of coverage in this MOU either. I mean, it's completely vague. I understand what,
It always
I
is.
understand what Sergeant Meehan, I understand what
It
he
is,
said.
it is vague, it's
I
not.
understand what he said, but if I'm sitting in Albany or someplace else, and I have no connection to the town of Clifton Park, Saratoga County, and I see that their revenue decreased by $200,000, and I need to make cuts somewhere, I know where I'm starting, and that's right here, and that's not a position I think we put ourselves in. moving forward.
Well, you're making some.
I don't think there's anything
Now,
funny about it.
now you're putting yourself in a
police at all.
position where you're running the state police, okay?
I don't think that at all.
That's
In
your
fact,
choice.
I think
That's your
defunding the police here in town is a dangerous position to go.
Defunding the police.
So I guess,
yes, I'd like to,
Defunding the police, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
it's not ridiculous.
It's
We're
absolutely
concerned.
ridiculous, defunding the police, are you
It is
serious?
exactly the way it is.
Oh.
Have they not been, getting rent free for the last 20 years?
Yeah.
So, and then, do we not do maintenance in all of our town-owned business? Routine maintenance, routine upgrades with all of our town-owned businesses? We've never asked for a trade-off at the senior center, Barney Road, or Locust Lane, and because elsewhere we had to do painting, carpeting, windows. We've been doing that in all of our buildings. So I don't
Yeah,
understand.
but this is a contract with an outside agency, it's not a town agency.
It's our building though, we're responsible for maintaining
Of
it.
course, yeah.
Okay, so why are we asking them to trade something on for it? It's our responsibility to take care of our building.
Yeah,
Okay,
Right.
so, but there was a whole thing about what kind of paint they wanted and carpeting and doors.
right, that's all here in the MOU, correct?
So we have the specific color of paint, but we can't get the specific, number of patrols or services or shifts, or I think that we need to revisit this MOU and get some more specifics.
They don't,
Guaranteeing and writing
yeah,
patrols.
they don't, the sheriff's contract is written that way, the state police does not have contracts, of that type. But, you know, they work in our town every day, like you said, we have 25 patrolmen, patrol people, what is it, 3 sergeants, 6 investigators. So they're doing a lot of work in, Clifton Park and the surrounding community every day. So, you know, either way, I mean, I've always viewed my job as putting forward ideas, putting forward, either new ideas or altering, or trying to make better, current, relationships, whatever the case may be. And if it's something the board doesn't want to do, then that's fine.
I think that's a false choice. I think the issue is
Well,
the concern that by reducing the funding, I guess there's one of two issues here. Either we've been paying the state police for 20 years for services they would have provided to us anyway, and we've been paying them $4 million-ish for the last 20 years for services we would have gotten anyway. And I understand why we wouldn't want to discuss that. Or we're actually going to reduce the amount of services moving forward. Again, I find it hard to believe that the New York State Police would agree to provide the exact same level of protection for a reduction in spending like this. I find that very.
yeah, but they're not.
I find it very.
Yeah,
hard
but
to
they
believe.
don't have a contingent of personnel in Clifton Park that's working solely in Clifton Park.
I
They're
understand
working in and around our town, in our community. They have a large contingent of people here.
I understand
And
that.
obviously, because, like Sergeant Meehan said, it's based on many different factors that the administration of the state police, assesses to determine what the level of people that will be assigned to Clifton Park or Malta Barracks or anywhere else. They're not going to say, all right, we'll make sure there's gonna be 10 state police in the town of Clifton Park at all times. But obviously, we see the commitment, we see the large amount of work that they do in our community every day. So clearly, their presence here at Exit 9 is great for the town, and it's a good deal for them, because they have free space that they can utilize, as well as everything else that's included in this MOU. So,
And I don't disagree with any of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Again, it comes down to this seems to be a bad financial deal for the state police in a time of fiscal distress. And that it's.
Well, I work for the town of Clifton Park, so
I understand that,
you know.
but then I think it's worthwhile to go back and do some sort of audit over the last 20 years to see what exactly we've been paying for, and have we actually been required to be paying that? Because I'm thoroughly confused as far as this arrangement.
Okay.
Thank you, I'm confused too.
I'm thoroughly confused. I have no clarity.
For me, until we get clarification, I can't support a reduction in promoting personnel.
And I also don't understand why, even though why it's different from the sheriff contract, well, they won't give the shifts that they're covering and how many officers they're covering exclusively within a Clifton Park. The sheriff contract is very clear, Monday through Sunday, 8 to 4, 4 to
Yeah, right.
12, 2 officers for a lot more money.
Yeah.
So why can't we get that definition from the New York State troopers? Saying they're gonna do it for free. And also, is there a contract from last year from New York State troopers
I
available?
don't think we had one last year. I don't think we had one for a while.
I don't think so either.
What about 20 years ago, 10 years ago? There has not,
Probably.
3 years ago?
It's been a while since there's been an actual MOU.
I think the question is, are we operating under a contract? I mean, they're sending us an invoice. Either, if they're sending us an invoice, either there's a legal obligation to pay that under a contract, or there's a statutory obligation to pay it. I mean, they're not just sending out bills to the town of Clifton Park just because. There's gotta be some sort of legal obligation to do that. And I guess the question is, under what obligation are they sending us an invoice and we're paying it? I thought I understood this process, but clearly I do not.
Okay.
I mean, I guess if I could just speak on it.
Yep.
One of the things I took away from Sergeant Meehan is when I asked him about the number of troopers that work out at Clifton Park, he gave a specific number and he said it was based on FBI statistics, number of calls. He didn't say it had anything to do with monetary contribution per municipality, which makes sense. To me, this MOU is about the facility that we provide. Half Moon, other municipalities don't provide space and they still get state police coverage. So, I mean, I would join in the questions around whatever MOU was entered into 20 years ago and what has changed. The way the state does their budgetary process, but as far as for the town, which is, who we represent, I thought the commitment was pretty clear that the level of coverage in our town and out of the barracks wasn't going to change, regardless of 200,000 being moved out of a budget line, and that's what I care about, is the amount of police coverage. So, I mean, it'd definitely be great to get some more clarification from maybe someone higher up in administration in the state police as to how they look at this differently, why we were ever getting charged $200,000 on an MOU on a facility that is not also located in another municipality. I think it's a great question. I don't know that it affects my support of this MOU, but it definitely, I would want to know what happened over the last 20 years. Was that valid? What changed on their end? I don't think it's changing on our end. This to me just makes sense. And really what I care about is the police coverage. I don't think we're talking at all about defunding, because the funding doesn't come from our town.
Well, I think that's what we're trying to figure out.
Right.
And Tony, I agree with you. I think the MOU itself is unobjectionable. I think there's two sort of separate issues. There's the MOU and there's the budget line. And the MOU, I think is unobjectionable. I don't fault the state police for wanting an increase or, betterment of their facilities. I don't begrudge them that at all. I think that's certainly an investment that's well spending. I think the separate issue is the budget item.
I won't support, this until we have more clarification. And I do see the funding police.
Well, that's ridiculous. In honest case, it just makes zero sense whatsoever. So, but that's fine. It's your opinion. You're entitled to it. And,
So
all right.
will we get clarification? Will there be a resolution to this? I mean, we only have a couple of weeks.
All right, very good. If there's any other,
I'll take that as a no. We won't get clarification?
I don't know what more clarification I can provide. So, I mean, if you have what's in front of you.
I feel like I'm being gaslighted. I do. I mean, I have an MOU, which we all support, but it does not address the reductions. So does this $200,000, we've got a law enforcement line of $810,000 in the tentative budget, the preliminary budget. If we reduce that, it'll be $610,000. Mark, you said that the sheriff's department contract was increased in their annual 2%, which totals $584,000.
Right.
Right, okay. So the remaining $26,000 goes to the state police for their carpet and their paint? I need details. I don't understand that. Maybe a more itemized, some details on this particular line, Mark?
But the line of maintenance would be in the maintenance line for whatever that building is called. I think it was.
Public
right,
safety.
Public
what the
safety
name of
building?
that building is.
Public
It would be
safety.
in their maintenance line, the same as all the other town building maintenance lines. It wouldn't be in the law enforcement line. It doesn't belong there. That's, we're obligated to do this.
So is it possible that we meet with the other person signing the proposed MOU, which is Lieutenant Colonel Smith, either have something in writing for him, or have him at a public meeting, or have one or two people from the town board meet with him, or what would be a way to, I mean, that's the other, that's what we're looking for, is the answer for the state police, that what has changed, and really that they're gonna commit to the same level of service, which I think is what we're getting.
Well, we have the sergeant here.
The sergeant.
Yeah, the sergeant was talking about the MOU. We're not, talking about the MOU. I think, are you in favor of the MOU as it's written? No, okay, I'm in favor of the MOU as it's written. Okay,
I want the things that I asked for, the things that we should. Ordinance.
Oh, okay, so you want details? I think we're all asking
Yeah,
for
I'd like to
details.
have
I
it
mean,
read the
the
same.
MOU on its own is fine. I'm not objecting to providing all those things in the MOU. I support everything that Sergeant Ian said. Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, the state police, should be getting more from us if we can provide it. We are fiscally strong, New York State is not. And if we can provide a solid, some security for our New York State police coverage, then I think that we should provide it. I'm glad that we're providing free space and promising them additional, free space should be something ever happen to the public safety building when we move. I'm happy about that. I am very concerned about where the discrepancy. I am respectfully asking for details, again.
Okay, well, we have a very detailed memorandum of understanding that's in front of you. You heard from Sergeant Meehan, who is the head sergeant at the Clifton Park Barracks, as far as what their current contingent of personnel is that works out of the Clifton Park Public Safety Building. He gave you an idea of what the history is. The amount of positions has increased substantially over the years. And he also talked about what he sees as a continued strong commitment to utilizing the public safety building and having a continued large contingent of personnel working on the building. So,
Is there any reduction
I
in the
thought that
Saratoga
was,
County Sheriff's Department enforcement line?
no, I said before, it's going up 2%.
Okay, and their patrols are going to be maintained at the
The
level that they've been at?
contract language is not supposed to change. The only thing changing is it goes up 2%. Mention it's typical that it goes up 2% a year. Okay. Very good. So any other discussion on the other budget items that brought forward again? I guess we'll put the state police MOU aside.
I have questions, Mr. Supervisor, about the capital lease payment and the highway fund. What are the terms of that? Is that an annual payment? Is it?
Yeah, that's,
2 years,
as I
3
said,
years?
that's $50,000. You can use it for an annual lease payment for a truck. Anything like that.
And, okay. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I know you, I didn't know, do you want to talk about your mind, or did you want to bring up the paving?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that, the capital lease payment, it's $50,000. I just don't understand the terms of the agreement. Is it 1 year, 3 years, 10 years, 40 years? I'm not sure what.
It's just money that's added to your capital lease payment line for equipment or a truck or something that you might want to purchase. It's additional money for that purpose.
Okay, so when you say a plow truck, what's your idea of a plow truck?
What do you mean it's my idea of a plow?
Because
truck?
I don't know.
Look, it's $50,000. You
if
can use it for
50,000
purchasing, okay?
So
Next.
$50,000
Next.
is
Do you
that
have any
gonna?
other questions?
Yes, I
Next.
do. Is
Go ahead.
$50,000? I don't know if that's gonna last. If that's gonna be in the budget for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years.
Well, we're doing the 2021 budget, so I guess it's next year.
So it's a
And you already have money in that
$50,000.
line. So it's additional money for you to utilize to buy equipment.
Or is it like similar times that we've done a lease where it's for 5 or 7 years? That's all my questions.
You have a line that says leases, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the money that you spend on leases. So it would be in that line.
So it's a $50,000 lease for 1
It's a
year.
$50,000 addition to that lease line. Now, you have various leases that encumber the money within that line each year, correct?
Correct.
So you'd have another $50,000 to utilize at your discretion.
For 1 year.
Well, like I said, that line goes up and down. If I were you, I'd be kind of thrilled it was going up.
So I guess that goes back to my,
But you have to manage what leases are coming due, and you'll no longer have payments, and what lease payments might be new that are coming on board. And that, when you manage that line
yeah,
within those terms.
we did try that
There's
2
another
years ago.
$50,000.
And one of the vehicle leases that came up, We took that lease, well, we originally got $600,000 in 2017 from the town board. That was pulled back, and one of our vehicle and equipment leases that expired, instead of taking that money to vehicles and equipment, went to paving. Now, I'm not gonna fight against additional paving. I think additional paving is a great idea. I just wanna know if that $50,000 in that line, is it for 1 year or for multiple years?
How much is in that line now, Mark?
There is, hold on. So the, so there's the tentative budget had, we have $269,000 in lease payments for 2020. One of the leases was ending in 2020, so it was going down to $195,000 for the lease payments.
And there's multiple leases that encumber that money.
Right, there's I
So
believe there's two.
So if you increase the line $50,000,
So we would,
then you have more flexibility for new leases.
we,
And then you might have others coming off. Is that correct?
correct, we were proposing to put in $50,000 for a lease. Now, we do not have any terms on that. That's just an estimate right now. We wouldn't have any the terms until we actually go out to get the lease.
Well, it's not tied to anything other than that line.
Correct.
It's an increase in what is available
Right.
to buy equipment.
Typically, we do leases between 5 and 7 years.
Right.
Okay, from what I remember, the last time that we went out, that's the term period that they want to do. They don't necessarily do 3-year leases.
Right.
All right, so that was
Well,
just my question.
I would look at your schedule of leases and see how you might be able to manage another 50,000 in that line.
So that's perfect. I mean, if we're looking at a 5 or 7 year lease, and that $50,000 is going to remain in there, or that we're stable enough to keep that going for the 7 years, then that opens up a whole new world of just a single 1 year $50,000. That's all I was looking for.
Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, in the budget, we had taken $100,000 out of paving, and there was discussion about adding that back next year as the year moves by. I don't see why we can't just add $100,000 to paving line right now, as opposed to, historically, we've always added the money to paving. And I think it certainly behooves the highway department to have more money in their budget next year for paving, to allocate that, spread those dollars as far as they can, as early as they can. So from that standpoint, I would support certainly adding $100,000 back to paving.
All right, so take it out of the slip line.
No.
So we're, well, if we don't have, the savings that were proposed, then I guess, where would you get that money from then?
I would take time reserve fund if we have to.
Well, we've certainly done that many times in the past. We gauge the results of sales tax revenues in the first or second quarter of a year and allocate additional funds from that account for paving. So we could certainly do that. Right now, we have just under $1 million, I guess, right, in paving.
When you add,
Like 67,000 at best.
when you add the chips and the paving together.
Yeah. So it's just under $1 million now.
Why don't we make it $1 million?
It seems to me that like, he's being penalized because he's getting the slip line, which is very important for him to have. But that equipment will allow us to be able to identify more paving. So you're taking.
Well,
that
no,
back.
he's not getting penalized because previously we didn't have a separate line for slip lining. So what we would do is
What's the
apply
equipment?
that towards the paving line. Now we're not doing that anymore under my proposed amendment, so therefore the paving will be for paving.
But
And
some
that-
finance equipment, and several other departments ask for equipment, which I'll get to later.
Hmm.
I just don't know why highway has, it's most like, we're gonna give you this wonderful piece of equipment, it's gonna identify where we need more paving. But we're gonna take away $100,000 from the paving fine, so you can do that.
Why don't we, at this point, I'm sorry, it's taking a little while to get there, but, Larry, Liz, do you want to, speak? Yeah, come on up, please.
I'll support you, Larry.
43 families, you know? I guess you need my name? Larry Brodsky.
Who are you?
Who am I? Larry Brodsky, 81 Blue Jay Way. First, I wanted to, at least initially, thank the board for their attention to our issue, which has been going on for, I've been there almost 19 years, in terms of the deterioration of the road. I appreciate you coming by and me too, and checking it out. We were hoping, we are still hoping that this will be the budget year where it takes care of the problem. I was here several weeks ago. And really, it's a matter, I understand, first it was $150,000 in the new slip line, which I think supposedly is the answer to our problem, as well as the paving. Now it's $200,000. That's great. I guess my question to the board and to Dan too is that amount of money based on an analysis of the issue?
Mhm.
Is it going to be enough? Because as we've all learned in the last 8 months, stuff happened. And not necessarily for the better. My understanding too, and what's just been voiced, is that you're taking money from paving, which we're gonna need too. That's affecting 45 families. So the question is, how did we arrive, and you have budget workshops, to $200,000? Is it based on an analysis of the problem?
Oh, we certainly wouldn't leave the job half done, that's for sure. But it's a very good start to getting a single line item with that process, because it's not just your area, but others that, need to be prioritized.
I like good starts, I like
Yeah.
good finishes too. You know what
Well,
I mean?
like I
And I
said,
think
yeah.
that, and as I mentioned several weeks ago, it's gonna cost you a hell of a lot more money next time, if the problems get worse.
Well, that's,
Um,
no, but we would not leave the job.
in terms of your process, was it based on an in-depth analysis of what the issue is?
Yeah, we had
I'd be
some
happy to answer that
discussions
question.
around what the cost would be, both in your area and others, and,
Yeah, we work with a contractor out of Schenectady, Precision Slip Lining. They're right close by, right across the river. We had the contractor come in, we met with them out on the site. They measured the distances that we would be working in. They gave us a worst case scenario. The worst case scenario was a very big number. Now, a strange thing, if there's any, Steve might have a few points on this too. The stormwater pipes under Blue Jay Way are all different sizes, which complicates the issue, because when you pay per foot for slip lining, depending on the diameter of the pipe, the price gets exponentially higher. So at the beginning of the system, we're talking 12-inch pipes. At the end of the system, we're almost at 30-inch pipes. It's pretty big, just because of how wet, how swampy the area is outside of the neighborhood. So when I came to the town board, I said, this is our bad news bears number. And they said, that's a big number. So when we discussed it, I said, hey, look, we can do some of these things in-house through our sewer department and Mike O'Brien. It's gonna take several days. We have to map out and video every single pipe under that street. We have to figure out the diameter. We have to spot per foot where the problem areas are. Yeah, exactly. We know a stretch that's the worst. but we know that, that there are still things lurking underground right now. So we want to make sure that we map all that out and best use the money that is put in that slip line to focus on those areas, because we can go through our contractor, go through catch basin to catch basin. So if we can find areas that the stormwater was constructed properly before being turned over to the town, we can skip some of those areas. If we can find the worst hit areas and we see those sinkholes forming, or just a sinkhole, we know that that is the area that we need to focus on. But we don't, like you said, we don't want to do half the job. We don't want to come in and say, okay, we're going to fix this one area. We want to make sure that when we come in, we have enough funds and resources to do it the right way. But we're going to be smart about it. We're not going to hit it with a sledgehammer. We're going in with a scalpel.
So is the, I guess, is the $200,000 just to continue to look? You also mentioned a big bad number, which apparently seems to be a mystery. Is there?
It's not a mystery at all. If we were to slip line the whole road, it'd be north of $360,000.
Okay.
That's just doing it the easy way. But we want to make sure that we do it the right way and the financially responsible way. But we just need to map it out first, and it's going to take several days. And the last time we talked about it at the budget hearing was the day after a massive windstorm, and we've been pretty much picking up brush and running all over the place. And now it's snowing 24 days earlier than we wanted it to. So it's something that I'm gonna have to sit down with Michael Bryan, find some dedicated time, and get him and his crew that just took over how many customers? 3,400 sewer customers? 2,000 sewer customers, and just got a new sewer district. So we're gonna have to find some time in our calendars to sit down, video camera everything, and map it out and see where we can find areas that we can get by.
So the $200,000 and also which I understand some of that was taken from the paving, is that sufficient to, I guess the bottom line for me and for Liz, to begin and end this in this budget, in this coming budget?
It can be. It can be, because once that pipe is completed and we repave the rest of Blue Jay Way, that's about $125,000, possibly to $150,000 job. That's 1/8 of our paving budget.
Okay. And I hate to say it, but I'm concerned about my neighborhood.
Of course. Yeah.
And that's all, it's like, I got my own.
We know you care.
You know what I'm saying? But so the sense that I'm getting from you, Dan, is 200,000 is enough to do the job.
Yes, my goal is to make sure that money is used properly to take care of where the sinkholes are, find the other areas where we have the issues. But I want to make sure that we find out what's good and what's bad first.
And fix them and then repay them. You got enough money for that.
Yeah.
And like we spoke before and tonight, we're not gonna leave the job, half done, like 3/4.
Okay, I mean, my incredulity is really due to the fact it's been going on for 19 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Liz and I have been trying to pull the neighborhood together to kind of say, you gotta get this done.
Yeah, I know the problem started in 1999, and with the construction of all the infrastructure there and it being rushed and cobbled together, and when we went through and started trying to finish up developments that had been paved, I said, okay, looking back through the records, we're seeing that Blue Jay Way had some work to it. Let's try to get this neighborhood finished up. Then we're starting to, then this is just, last year. And now that I'm starting to see all these sinkholes, okay, something else is going on here. We got to figure out a plan. And that's where we started out bringing the plan to the town board during last year's budget.
Okay, I mean, I got faith, but.
Keep the faith, Larry.
I'll be back.
Keep the faith.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Larry, you got my number. We've been emailing back
There
and
we
forth,
go.
so we're.
And you're not going anywhere, right?
I hope not.
All right.
Thank you.
And come back to the law.
Yeah, you got a matching mask too, Ellen.
Yes,
That's really cool.
It's open, it's very safe.
Yeah.
Very clean, and we're looking to get members back. It's a great part of this community.
Sure is.
Really is.
You're decked out, so you're
It is.
marketing.
Thank
Good marketing.
you.
Did you want to speak? Yes.
You.
Yes, ma'am.
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Yes.
If I could go back to the state police
Oh, sure,
Okay.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through tomorrow. I need to
Thanks.
open them. Thank you. My name is Marcia Abel, I live on Meadow Estates. I'm confused, I was sent here by my neighbors, we want to know, I'm the one. I just need to clarify. We have been, we supplied the state police, and we're very thankful for them. They're the office space and the areas there for 20 some odd years, and we've been taking care of the building, the space, correct? And we've been paying them 200,000 a year.
Well,
Fair, of course, it's gone
I'm
up.
up to that point.
Right, okay, so,
Didn't start there.
okay. So, but now this year, they're accepting that you just continue to take care of the space, but do not have to pay them? Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, within the MOU, we have.
What's MOU? I'm sorry, I don't have.
Responsibilities that, you know,
Okay,
that I described earlier, you know, that would be the town responsibilities.
okay, so we're going to take their space, we're going to take care of their space like we always have. They are going to give us the same protection as they always have, but we do not have to pay them 200,000. It just seems too good to be true.
Well, like I said, you know, there are responsibilities that we're committing to. We're also committing to the partnership long term, as well as if we were to build a new building and move away from the public safety building, which I think we should do at some point, that they would be a part of that.
So,
And that's very valuable.
so I guess, they probably consider themselves lucky that they've been under this agreement for all these years, getting their space free and the 200,000, and they probably think, well, okay, you know what, we've been doing pretty well for 20 some odd years. We are okay with not receiving 200,000.
You know, I don't like to put myself in their shoes.
Yeah.
Like I said, I work for the town of Clifton Park. But I can say that there's no doubt that they find a lot of value in what has been discussed. You know, there's other places that they rent. There's places that are owned by the state. I mean, they have various, you know, different structures within their relationships that they may have with a municipality or an area of the state. And in this case, you know, there's no cost to them.
They're happy with it. That's great for us. If they're, you know, we don't.
Well, like I said, you know, this isn't exactly, you know, the town does nothing. You know?
No. I mean, we're giving that space.
I mean,
That's expensive space. I
yeah.
understand that.
Yeah, and in a long-term commitment.
And you trust the state police. I shouldn't even say this. I love them. But you can trust that they're going to give us the same protection as they always have under this new contract.
I can tell you this. If you look at how their commitment, the number of personnel they have dedicated to this area over the years has grown substantially. And the location is tremendous. The price is really good because it's free. And a future commitment, knowing that they'll have a home in the exit 9 area for the long term in Clifton Park in Saratoga County, right near the Northway.
So it's well worth it for them to stay here, obviously, even if they don't get the 200,000. And we're not in a real big crime area, so they're probably not hopeful. I mean, I'm not hopeful, they're not really busy, right?
Oh, no, they're busy. No, they're patrolling, they're,
Well, I
you
hear
know.
it, but I mean, with rest and.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
no, they certainly have their share, you know, they do, you know, obviously a lot of vehicle and traffic.
Yeah, I think they do that.
Yeah, so they patrol quite a bit. They do, monitor mainly state roads in the town, of which, 146, 9, those are state roads, 146A, state road. They do obviously spend some time on the north way. They do, respond to calls for service from residents. They do a tremendous amount of drug work, in the entire area. They, with 6 investigators, PCI investigators, they're very busy, so. So no, they're busy
Yeah.
with a variety of different tasks that you might expect a police officer to be involved in. But, they've always been, we've always had a very good relationship with them. And,
Well, as long as you're happy with this and you feel comfortable, that's all I need to know. Everybody was a little concerned when they read the paper that they were not going to be, giving a $200,000 contract to them. We want to keep them here, obviously. We want,
oh, sure. Absolutely.
some of the city, I work in Schenectady and I love Schenectady, but I can see what, you know what can happen. And
Oh, yeah.
God forbid, we ever had to go to a police force between the, to have our own police force between the benefits and the health, the pension, it would be astronomical. So 200,000 really is not much to pay out. If we have to pay it, we gotta pay it. If you wanna give it to us, well, I guess you don't want to give it to us enough, right?
Well, I think, in my experience for many years, negotiating agreements on behalf of the town and other facets of life that I'm involved with in business, the agreements change because, look, as individuals we change, as organizations we change. We certainly need to change. Every organization needs to change constantly, especially in today's world. As organizations do change, and priorities are reviewed on a regular basis, the importance of certain items within an agreement become prioritized. So you look at, you look at our current agreement, current relationship, and then they're looking down the road, right? And they're prioritizing what's important to them, just like the town of Clifton Park is. Our priority is to support the police that work in our town and to continue to have good relationships with the sheriff, state police, and then of course we have our security committee. So that's our priority, is maintaining that solid relationship. And what their priorities are, I don't know. I didn't ask, really. Because, my focus is the town of Clifton Park, and, so am I comfortable with this agreement? Absolutely.
Again, it seems like it's too good to be true, but it's just.
Well, I think one of the other things that you brought up is the value of the real estate.
It's going up, right?
The sergeant talked about when they first entered into this agreement, it was 2000, they had 6 troopers. Now they have 25 plus 3 plus 6. So if we were to enter into this MOU as a municipality and offer them that free space, they would still have to provide the same level of service, but they'd have to go and purchase, build, or rent out a space for all of those troopers. So I think the benefit that they're gaining from our town has increased based on the number of troopers that they have in this general area, not just serving Clifton Park, they also serve Malta and Half Moon and the Northway border. So I think what we're giving them has increased over the last 20 years, and maybe that factored into the decision point around the 200,000. In 2000, when they only had 6 people, they could have probably gone to a lot of different spaces. So it made sense, as where we're sitting up here at the time, to maybe incentivize that space. Now, they need us just as much as we want them.
Okay, good. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. No, I think that's, you're exactly right. the value of that location has grown substantially over the years. Yeah, because they certainly wouldn't abandon the area. They would not have, it would not vacate Clifton Park in this area as far as significant presence. But you need an office, you need a place to work, and obviously that's very. If you're somebody that's in real estate trying to find a piece of property for a police department, I don't think you can find a better piece of property than that. So. But, okay, so, any other, discussion,
One other item that I know I corresponded previously with, and no one had objected to it, although no one had really opined, was adding $1,000 to the budget line for the Historic Preservation Commission for next year. I know I at least conversed with everybody. This is a commission that has grossly underspent its budget over the years that I've been liaison, to the tune of about 50%. Thereabouts, we've underspent. One of the things they propose to do is spend a big portion of that increase on Joe Ferranini, who we talked about a couple of weeks ago, doing gravestone restoration, working with, certain members of the commission and other volunteers. I mean, that's really a force multiplier. That's an addition of a few $100s. You're getting literally thousands of dollars worth of labor. I've spoken with Seymour, the chair of the commission, and members of the commission. They wholeheartedly support the increase. And certainly they asked me to carry this, so I would ask for your support to increase that budget line from $2,000 to $3,000 next year.
So an additional 2,000.
$1,000. From 2,000 to $3,000.
I think, the presentation that Ricky Andrus did a couple weeks ago was phenomenal. And I think that really highlighted the need for doing this, because that is not the only location in town that requires that kind of, work. And, I do support the historic preservation engaging in that. Honestly, I haven't given the additional $1,000 as much thought. I did receive your email on that. My apologies. My focus has been elsewhere, but I do support an increase in their budget line for those endeavors. Because again, I think that presentation that we saw really highlighted the need for that work to be done, because it's not being done.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a group of people that have been members, many of them since the 1990s.
Yeah.
As volunteers. Like I said, I think if you were to quantify the dollar value that they provided over the years, it's the town has certainly gotten a return on its investment.
And there's multiple of those cemetery graveyards throughout town.
Yes,
I used to
that's
ride our
right, yeah.
bikes to visit them when I was a kid.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
I don't know
yeah.
what happened to them.
Yeah, and I mean,
Probably nothing.
yeah, my relationship with the division is such that, as I talk to people, somehow cemeteries become something that people talk to you about. And particularly the one on the Million Cemetery, Clifton Park Center Road. I mean, it's in a highly visible area, and people I think appreciate that. That's a sign of sort of, I think disrespect for people who lived previous. And I think, for a lot of people, you think to yourself, you know what? It'd be nice if someone remembers me 200 years from now if I'm in the same position. I think it's the least we can do for people who helped settle this town and help make it what it is.
Actually, that was on my list of things to add also, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would be supportive of that, Councilman Miller. I think the historical preservation is sort of makes our community really unique, and we want to make sure we're supporting it.
okay, very good. How about the, transfer station, budgetary items? There were 3 that I mentioned. If there's any, further discussion on that?
I think, the gentlemen that, are involved in this increase are satisfied, and I'm okay with the additional salary increase for Dan and Darren.
Yeah, no, I'll second that. I mean, I think certainly I trust Dan Kieran's leadership. you know, certainly on this to make the transition work, you know, certainly those challenges, you know, with that, but again, taking on additional responsibilities to me carries with it additional, you know, salary increase. So, you know, so congratulations, you know, I think, we have the right people for the job, and, you know, the right people for the job, so I wish you all the best, and, I've no doubt we'll make it a success.
We got the public safety radios. That was another item we talked about at the workshops as well.
I support that.
I can support that too. But they also asked for message board, for $14,000. Message boards have become very important in the community. And although we sometimes have to borrow them from the county, so does everyone else. They're not always available when we need them. So I'd like to have that considered.
I know there were some issues when we were paving Usher's Road thing with the message board. Was that we could not get the county message board?
Yeah, we had our one message board that we used, the county emergency management services, they couldn't, get us another one, we had to borrow half of them.
How many do we have? I forgot what Lou said. How many we have. Do
Just
you know
one,
how many we have? One?
just one.
Do we have the ability to rent them on short notice if needed, or is there someone, their company or something like that?
Mark?
As opposed- as
Yeah,
opposed to-
That's a Dan
Oh,
question.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Does Gazelle have those?
That's sweet, they can be rented.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What's
Think
the,
equipment, and that's.
Oh,
something
Think,
we
that's
rented from them before for 4th of July.
Oh,
yeah.
We have,
You remember how much, it was to?
Depending on obviously the length of, you know,
Oh, yeah.
they have your daily, weekly, monthly, and, big assignments, but yeah, a couple $1,000 at the most for a long term. They're pretty cheap, I think.
Yeah, it's $1,000, I think, for a week. No, it's $1,000 for 2.5 weeks. The longer you go, they were decreasing.
Yeah, if you had a longer term, they'd give you a better break.
How much they cost?
14,000.
You just buy it.
Is that for the small one that like we have, or the?
No, I think that would be for the larger one.
Oh, I don't know.
I guess it would depend on how often we use them, if it would be worth the investment. I did not ask you that question.
Yeah, I didn't ask yet, but I will.
I don't know if Dan has the answer to that, how often we use those.
When we use them, it's usually an emergency situation. So most of our crews are either moving material or at the site, whatever it might be. It would be tough to take someone that we need at the site or moving material to then go rent a board. Usually when we rent things, I have to do it in person. So I'd have to go off site. But with one board, you know, roads go in two directions. If we get two boards, at least we know that if we have to shut our road down, we can hit people from two directions at any point.
How long does it take to get the rentals?
When we've done it, we do it ahead of time, knowing it's for the 4th of July, so it's up, we reserve it ahead of time. As far as on demand, I couldn't speak to that.
If you
They do
needed
have a
like
lot
an
of them.
emergency, same day, an hour or two.
It's if they have them too.
So Dan, you use them in your department, so this would be something that obviously highway would use them, but your
We could.
department would use them as well.
We could, 4th of July, really, talking about how we would use. I don't see any other use for it for our department.
Just like the July.
Yes, ma'am.
But that would, okay.
And that's not even every 4th of July at the time. Sometimes we are able to get them from the county and the state, but sometimes it's, they haven't had them either. So we've had to rent them. Certainly not an annual thing in the budget.
I think I support what you're saying, Linda. I think I would like to ask Lou a couple more questions before we.
Yeah, but I think I need to figure out, you know, how often he's had to use them. We use them a lot for the speed recognition too. When the school opened, we had the sign out, that, you know, reminded people that school's open and put the speed limit in that area and to watch the crosswalk. So, you know, I think it's kind of important to use kind of routinely for, just a routine message, reminding people the rules.
Okay. All right, so, there was 100,000 for highway that would come out of the general fund. As I said, many years in the past, we've been able to assess the trajectory of our revenues, particularly sales tax revenues, going into the first or second quarter of the year, and allocated additional funding for paving has been one thing that has been a priority over the years. So I don't know. I mean, the economy is certainly better since the reopening has gained steam, but I don't think we're out of the woods yet as far as COVID and the effects that it may have. So I think, but I do think we can, well, without the, I guess, Mark, I guess we have to run some math too, because without well, I guess we can take out the $200,000 decrease, but then take out the $50,000 increase on the other side, on the general fund, right? So,
Yes.
Can you just do some quick numbers if we had everything except those two line items? I guess it would be an increase of about 100,000. Or 90,000. This would be closer to 90. So that'd be a $90,000 increase as opposed to a $60,000 decrease, right?
Yeah, $90,000
Yeah.
$90,000 increase in the budget.
Okay, then we have the capital lease equipment. If that's something that, maybe isn't the best use for that money, we could, certainly, since it's here, we could either take it out, since we don't have that other savings, that other 150, and assess for a later date. If we maintain paving in the new slip lining line where it is now, and if we're going to keep spending at the same or about the same, then we're going to have to find some savings somewhere else. So, any ideas that anybody has?
I got a question. I have one question. So the assigned fund balance for revenues of 50,000 under highway, is that coming from the town's portion of the fund balance or the highway's portion?
Highway.
Okay. So we will be dipping into the highway savings now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So earlier when you said we were not dipping into savings, we're gonna take it from highway, so.
I was talking about the general fund, and how we're balancing the budget. Now but that was with with some different numbers, but each change that we make up or down obviously affects that.
Mark, I got a question for you. When we took out the lease, when Tumblr passed the lease for the $1 million of paving.
That's not a lease, that's a bond.
Okay, it's a bond. So what happened when you consolidated
And it's a long term,
Yeah.
so there's principal and interest that we're going to pay over 20 years.
Okay, so was that $1 million bond part of that consolidation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we bonded that money back in February of 2019. So that money is, and initially you were paying $100,000
About 112,000, right?
with principal and interest for a couple of years. Now the debt service on that is about $60,000.
And that was an additional $1 million that we bonded for paving that year, right?
Correct.
Yeah, the general fund was gonna put 600,000 in the paving, and that was pulled, and they then did the $1 million bond, right? I'm just.
I can't. I know we borrowed $1 million.
Well, it was over and above what was in the budget. So you had what was in the budget plus $1 million for that year. All right, so if we leave all that in there, Mark, if we leave all the highway money in there, then we still have a $150,000 increase in highway.
We have a $150,000 increase in the budget. The tax levy does not change. Okay.
In the highway fund.
In the highway, right, highway fund, highway budget.
But we have a $90,000 increase in general fund.
There is a $90,000, there would be a $90,000 increase in the general fund.
Right.
So we would have to find revenues to offset that increase.
Right. Well, I mean, at this point, the budget process isn't over yet. We still need to adopt the budget. So we can do one of two things. We can, add to the revenue side, which I'm not terribly comfortable with. Or find savings in other places.
Right, we would have to do that.
Yeah.
Well, we've got $59,597 that we're saving from the transfer station, from the supervisor, eliminating the supervisor position.
That, the $90,000 increase does already include, does include the $97,000 reduction in salary.
Yeah. Okay. So, that's our task at this point. So.
Look for savings.
What's that?
Let's look for savings.
Yeah.
Okay.
As you said, the budget process isn't over yet.
Yeah, but where are we gonna get the money for that $90,000?
I don't have the budget memorized, so I'd have to look at it more closely.
Well, it's either increasing revenues or
Do
savings.
you need an answer right now, or? Then I,
Well,
in that case, I would take increase.
Yeah, because if we
Then
make
let's-
these,
I would-
or we don't have to make any budget amendments.
Then I would,
Just leave it on.
then I would propose that we take $90,000 to fund the $100,000 paving from the general fund. Save the paving.
No, we're already taking 100.
That's my proposal. You don't have to agree with it, but that's my proposal.
Oh, I see. You're saying reduce the 100.
No, and keep the 100,000 that I proposed for
Right.
additional paving.
Yeah.
And take it from paving plans to savings, take it from the general fund.
Okay, so we are taking $100,000. This was part of the amendments. $100,000 from the general fund to the highway for infrastructure. But that leaves us with a $90,000 increase in spending in the general fund, as opposed to a proposed $60,000 decrease. So there's $90,000 that we need to cover through these amendments. If we make amendments, I don't want to make any amendments, yes.
Because we not have $90,000 in the town's EDA fund, that we could transfer to our expense.
Oh, good, sure.
Oh, that's my proposal.
Oh.
I thought it was clear, but clearly I was not, so I regret that.
Oh, no.
But that's, and listen, you certainly don't have to agree with it, but that's, you know.
Well, I was trying to avoid that as
Well,
part of the budget.
You know, working.
Well, actually, we have to add that, if we want to add that 1,000 that you mentioned.
Working with you over the years, one thing I've appreciated is the ability to take
Only
advantage.
one?
The ability to take advantage of many things, but the ability to take advantage of situations like this when they arise. And there are municipalities out there that unfortunately are in dire financial straits, and we don't know what the ability of these companies, what these cable companies will be if they're looking to make a deal. If we can stretch that additional funds even further than we normally would. Maybe we can't. And working with Superintendent Bold, I trust in our ability not to be flippant with the money, and if opportunities don't present themselves to spend this money in the most wise fashion, I'm confident that we have the relationships that we can work together to ensure that that does not happen. That's why I'm comfortable allocating money now, to ensure that if an opportunity presents itself, we are set up successfully to take advantage of that, as we have been over the last 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
That's my goal.
No, you're
to ensure
right.
that we are properly
No,
set
I
up to
agree.
take advantage.
No, I agree.
Again, as I said, we've done it for the last 20 years.
No, I agree.
I see an opportunity to do that.
No, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
No, going off of what James said, you know, as we're clarifying the term of the capital lease payment, you know, there are just a number of changes to our operations that are going through my head, whether it's the purchase of new street sweepers that are more efficient, quicker in getting the job done, use less manpower. I just think it's, you know, just rolling through ideas right now where we could make ourselves far more efficient. And that's the step I'm looking at now. And if we're looking at a 7-year lease, you know, a new street sweeper, you know, a lot of our street sweepers are from the 70s and 80s. They're slow, they're bulky, takes a lot of time to empty them out. But we have one Elgin Eagle, which is an amazing piece of equipment. It's currently 12 years old, but it looks brand new because our guys take such good care of it. And it can do half the town in the same amount of time it takes 3 sweepers to do half the town. So, you know, let's talk about doing more with less. That's a perfect example of that.
Okay. So, with the historic pres, it's 91. So we'll use fund balance at this point, Mark.
Okay.
If these items are approved.
Mark, has, Two Towns One Book, they're not operating this year, correct? I believe they're not doing their programs this year, and they didn't do much last year, is that correct?
We did pay the grant earlier this year for 2020. And I believe that I have it in the budget for 2021.
You do, yeah, I didn't know if they were going to be operating, in the 2021 year. I thought they were going to halt their operations, so I didn't know if that was maybe a spot where we could look to cut perhaps.
If they don't, I can find a place to put the money.
As someone who served on that steering committee, I certainly can reach out to them to see if they're going to be, what their plans are. And maybe that is something that we can utilize for the time being for historic preservation for 2021. I don't know, I thought I had heard, they still include me on email and said they were not gonna be in operation, so they were kind of putting things on hold. Typically, when they spend the money on that we grant to them is bringing in authors and programming in the community. They're not doing those kinds of things, they're all virtual, really, which is very little expense, so. Check on that.
Thank you, appreciate that.
All right, so this is what we have. Salary, increases for, Dan Kieran and, Don that we talked about. Transfer station capital lease for the new loader. Public safety radios, 30. The highway, and this is the general fund, so we got highway tax stabilization of 100,000. So that would go to highway for infrastructure. We got 1,000 for historic preservation increase from the first budget. Transfer station supervisor position. And I believe that's a total of $91,000 on the increase for the general fund, right, Mark?
Yes, I remember seeing $90,000 in.
So, if anybody wants to move those, amendments, and I should also add the 91,000 in additional spending in the general fund would come from, fund balance. Okay. Anybody want to move that?
Second?
Moved by Mr. Whalen, second by Ms. Smallwood. Discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the highway fund, so just make sure we're on the same page here. Capital lease, 50,000. Paving slip lining line at 200. Paving, reduction of 100, but as I said, many years, many past years, we've taken additional action on that, and I think, I can't say for certain, but if I had to bet on the odds, I say the odds are good. We'll be in a good position to do that again. Tax stabilization payment, that's coming from the general fund, so that's a revenue of 100. And $50,000 from the highway fund balance. So that is unchanged, right, Mark?
Right.
Yeah. So that totals a 150 increase in spending in the highway fund. Anybody want to move that?
So,
Second.
Moved by Mr. Morelli, second by Ms. Wallen. Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now, if you go to page 2 there, we talked about the sewer department. And I did mention this early in the meeting. So any thoughts on that, the new labor and that slight restructure in the department?
I'm happy to see it. That department has been incredible with just 2 people. But,
Great.
well, 2 additional people plus one.
Yeah.
So 3 people, yes, but, like you had mentioned, there is going to be increased, services that they need to provide. So, I think that, I'm grateful to see this new labor position. So I support that.
Yeah, they've done a great job with the resources they have, and, yeah, that's substantial. Okay, so there's 3 items there. You've got, Rob Van Buskirk, 5696, new labor, 7556. Of course, that includes benefits and everything. And then the equipment line reductions. I do think we should speak further about, the truck that Mike had talked about, even though it is very expensive. Have some flexibility on being able to deliver that, if we so choose.
what is the mechanism for that? Because that'd be a 2021, 2022 budget, right?
Yeah, I mean,
If it's a capital lease.
yeah, we can, take delivery and defer the payment for a period of time. Mark, can you explain that?
So similar to, it's very possible with Superintendent Bull's lease that money available, we could wrap that up into a capital lease, much like what we did back in 2007, 2018. And so it's signed the paperwork, and basically in 2021, we get the funds, we buy the equipment, and then, well, whoever has it pays for the equipment. Whoever has the lease pays for the equipment. And then we repay them on an annual basis over the terms that we've determined.
Right, so it's a 2022 budget item, so do we have to pass a resolution to enter into the contract in 2021 and take delivery, or what's the?
We would do that when we getting ready to buy and sign the documents for the lease.
So it's a resolution.
For the resolution.
Yeah, the buy, yeah.
So we're basically committing to a line. item
Right, because
next year.
typically what happens too is that these leases are, in the event you don't want to pay for it, or you want to return, you don't want to pay for it, you take it out of the budget, but you have to return the stuff, so.
Yeah, the rates have been tremendous. That's why it really moved strongly in that direction, and,
That's a conversation and a resolution for a different day.
oh, yeah, absolutely. No, that's just me saying that, you know, I think we should consider that, yeah, right. Okay, so why don't we just take one section at a time here? So, if somebody wants to move those amendments.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Woodland Hills. Park.
So this is actually just bringing the overall operation levy back up to comparable what it was in 2020. There was a miscommunication error that I had with Mike when I was probably doing it, and it didn't get in correctly. So actually, but what it still does is there is an actual overall reduction in the operational levy for both Woodland Hills and Dutch Meadows. One is $1,500, the other one is $615, and these are this levy is a unit-based charge, so it actually doesn't have any overall effect on the tax cap calculation that we have. So
Just goes directly to and from the customer.
it's charged as a unit charge, so everyone is paying, everyone who has one unit pays the same rate.
Right.
So it has no effect on the tax cap calculation.
And in those two areas, Woodland Hills and Dutch Meadows, they're all one unit, right?
I believe so, yes. I don't believe there's any commercial over in there. But so that, you know, ultimately what it is it's keeping their budget actually pretty much in line with what it was for 2020.
Okay, very good. So, so we'll look at Woodland Hills, if somebody wants to move that.
So
Second.
Moved by Mr. Morelli, second by Ms. Waller. Discussion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Dutch Meadows, same explanation.
Dutch Meadows is the same explanation.
Yeah. So somebody would like to move that.
So moved. Second.
By Mrs. Standard, second by Ms. Walworth. Discussion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And this, Clifton Park Sewer District number 2, that should have been 175, right?
Yes. So the map plan and report said that the 2021 charge was going to be $175. When we got it from Mike, we calculated at $180, and so what we're doing is we're dropping it down to the 175, which agrees to the map plan and report. We are still well within overall budgetary what we're projected to be, so we will not miss this revenue for next year.
Well, this is what we had spoken about during the public hearing.
Correct.
Yeah. Because that was, I think, just a little lower than what they were paying with the private company. If I remember correctly. Just a few bucks more.
Yes, I think they're paying $41. Is it $41.55 a quarter to us right now? So,
Yeah.
so it's roughly the same. And it's actually probably equals the same because they were paying sales tax under the old entity, and they're not paying sales tax to us.
Right. Okay, very good. Anybody want to move that one? Moved by Mr. Standard, second by Ms. Mullin. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Okay. All right, well, that takes care of, those amendments. Is there do you have any questions, Mark? Did as we crunch these numbers tomorrow and change the budget, do you have any questions?
I think I'm set right now.
You can always watch the replay. So I'm sure you'd love to watch this again.
Absolutely.
It's only been 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Supervisor, I did receive an email from Marlis McGinnis and Charlene Brunick. And I will add that into, the record, but it has been answered, her questions have been answered. And everyone got that.
Received.
Okay, thank you much. All right, so, I would say that, as far as, this position at the senior center, I don't know, I guess this is something we could talk about, for Monday's meeting.
Mr. Supervisor, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I meant to ask this earlier. Are we planning on keeping the full-time labor position in addition to making Raina's position full-time?
Well, that would be the likely scenario, at this point. Okay, any other questions? Concerns, comments? Okay, we just had a couple of speak. Hey, Steve, while you're here, Steve has asked about, well, a couple of things. One was additional, for Cheryl Reed, as a part-time. Could you talk a little bit about that, Steve?
Yeah, I've got a proposal on the Monday meeting to bring Cheryl back part-time. For now, in more of a training capacity, train John as a fire inspector, because with Cheryl leaving and will become the supervisor, I need a fire inspector. John's been working on the residential end since he got there. He has gotten the certification. And I was continuing to do more with him residentially, but I need to bring him along to make him a second fire inspector, because I need to have more than one guy working.
Did you have a max dollar figure with that proposal?
No, I think all I gave was a hourly rate for Cheryl. Figuring a day or two a week for the end of this year, and probably that or less, probably going into next year. I don't know definitive time frame. She may decide she doesn't want to do it anymore, but I mean, the one thing she has volunteered to do is like if Wade's on vacation and I need somebody to cover, she's willing to come in and work the way, as a supervisor, or Wade's away or something, if I need to do it. So that's good for me, and have the ability to have somebody that can step back into the position of me.
Yeah, so if anybody has any further questions on that, obviously contact Steve. Steve was also, I asked him to do a comparison, and this is something we do a couple of years, I guess. We look at comparison fee levels with Clifton Park and municipalities that we would consider in our peer group. So what did you come up with, Steve?
I looked at Colony,
this unit and a half move. And I gave everybody a copy of the proposed fee upgrades. In almost every case, we charge the least amount of any of the municipalities around us.
Which is not abnormal.
We've always been like that, but, we're looking to perhaps raise the fees a little bit again. We haven't done it in like 3 years at least, so. One thing that stands out is the cost of, the solar farms that are going up. The other municipalities around us are charging significantly more than we do for the project. They base it on the cost of the project, the construction cost of the project.
Right. Yeah. So I would say, take a look at that. If you have any questions now, for Steve, have at it. As he stated, it's been clear over the years that we're generally lower than just about everybody in our peer group. We're definitely on the low end. I don't think we want to change that drastically, but since it has been a little bit of time since we have increased them the last, I thought it would be a good idea to consider some of these increases. So we don't have to do it tonight, but definitely something to discuss further.
I support these increases. I think it still makes us business friendly, and it makes sense comparing, and thank you for the comparison to the other municipalities. So I think it's a good idea, but I don't think it's too much for preventing people from coming in and trying to do business.
No, definitely not. Again, compared to our peers, we are definitely on the low end. So, but I thought it would be good to take a look at it. So, thanks for putting this together, Steve. And we'll talk further about that.
I just have one question for Steve, but 2020 may be a weird year, but based on, let's say, past.
No, that's an understatement.
Maybe 2019 or 2018 compared to previous years, what would the proposed increase be, let's say, compared to 2019? I'm not looking for an answer right this second, but, you speak, if we had the increased fees, let's say in 2019, what fee revenue would that have brought in? Like I said, I'm not looking for an answer right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I can't answer that because I have to work the fees backwards into what we paid. I mean, I can tell you that right now this year, I think there's 350,000 supposedly coming out of building permit fees this year, and we're gonna easily make that this year. So, I mean, construction hasn't really slowed down in town a whole lot.
So do you think these fee increases?
I can tell you every contractor that walks in this building almost always tells me that we're the cheapest one around.
No, I'm just trying to figure out, like, do you think, like, would this be, you think like a 10% increase, 15, 20, 25?
Yeah, it depends, it all depends on if it's commercial construction, residential construction, so on, it's hard to say. Residential, they're going pretty steady all along, and, there's several more new developments on the board right now, so it might be right unknown. Yeah. I think, we keep getting a little more out of it, it's gonna be very helpful to us.
Yeah. Well, I agree, I mean, it's certainly not a negative. It's not a easy development.
Very good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have one last thing to say. I just wanted to make sure that our budget memo that we talked about at our budget hearing just was on the record for Teresa, because Teresa wasn't there, but and it's great news because a lot of the things we discussed today are actually in this. There's one other item I'll just put it in the email to you guys. I don't want to take any more time. You don't want to.
Thank you, sir.
There you go. And Linda. This is just a reminder. I'm handing out to Teresa. I want to make sure that everyone else gets the same copy.
Is this the same one that you gave us?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Oh,
same one.
okay. Thank you.
All right, entertain a motion to adjourn. Morelli? Second. Mr. Morelli? Go ahead, Teresa, I'll let you.
Councilman Rowland,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sandra,
Yes.
Councilman Morelli,
Yes.
Councilwoman Walloway, Supervisor Curry.
Yes.
There's still 9 people.
Dan, did you get?
Hey, Teresa, you can be standing.
I'll go do it.
Okay, let me go.
Thank you.
Okay.